So it's day one of NBA free agency. As of right now, the Philadelphia 76ers have not made any moves, but there are rumors circulating around this basketball team, and it all started on Thursday with the news that James Harden and the Sixers are going to work together to find a trade partner, and Brian Windhorst has talked about the idea that the Sixers could trade Tyrese Maxey for Damian Lillard, because the Sixers right now are not going to give Tyrese Maxey a contract extension this offseason. Here's Brian Windhorst on Tyrese Maxey here. The Sixers are not going to extend Tyrese Maxey this summer. You want to know why? Because the 76ers might trade him. And the player that they might trade him for goes by the name of Damian Lillard. Now, I wouldn't panic if I'm a Sixers fan out there that they're not going to extend this offer to Maxey. It gives them some financial flexibility as of right now, but also moving into the future. But if you hold on to him and then you project forward into next year, you do risk Tyrese Maxey being unhappy and potentially at some point losing him in NBA free agency. Here's this report from Ramona Shelburne. By the way, a bloodbath at ESPN today. Looks as though Ramona Shelburne going to be safe. The Sixers are not planning to extend Tyrese Maxey this summer. He is still seen as a big part of Philadelphia's future, but the team wants to delay an extension for him to preserve flexibility, which goes into the point that I just made. So much more to unpack on today's show, but first, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you ain't alive. When the Sixers make a move, we're going to talk about it in full detail. Every single move that the Sixers make this offseason, it's my job to discuss it, and I'm going to do just that. We're closing in on 11,000 subscribers. Lock us in and hit that sub button. Now, I do trust Kyle Neubeck of Philly Voice when it comes to reporting on the Sixers, and he said this about Maxey. According to sources familiar with the situation, this is not viewed as a condemnation, good word, of Maxey, or a reflection of how the team values him, with the team continuing to view Maxey as a long-term core piece. The lack of an extension would come down to the flexibility Philadelphia can maintain by holding off on a deal, potentially clearing a pathway to another max slot next summer. I will say this about Tyrese Maxey. Maxey is one of the best Sixers draft picks in the history of this franchise, considering where they drafted him a couple of years ago out of Kentucky as he fell into their lap after Mike Muscala hit that big game-winning three in the NBA bubble for that pick to convert to the Sixers, and how good he's been so far, and the impact that he's had in high leverage moments for a team that has made it to the second round every year of his NBA career. And the development of Maxey has been such a pleasant surprise for an organization that's missed on so many draft picks and has seen some of these players fail to develop over time. Every year that Maxey's been in the NBA, he has progressively gotten better and better, making profound improvements. And I do believe that heading into 2023, 2024, he has borderline all-star potential. Why do I say that? Because the trends back that up. And I think the Sixers are willing to move on from James Harden because they believe that Maxey can step in and he can be a running mate to Joel Embiid. I think ideally he is not your number two on a championship level team. He's more slotted in as that third piece. But I do believe that with more volume, more shot opportunities, you can see his numbers from this past season where he notched 20 points per game on 48% shooting, 43% from three, go up. Because if he has the ball in his hands more, and he's more of a focal point in this offense without James Harden dribbling for 20 seconds of the shot clock, and it's Maxey being that initiator, then his numbers will certainly increase. And when I talk about the development of Maxey here, it's wild how good he's gotten every year. Like coming out of Kentucky, he was in that backcourt for John Calipari with Emmanuel Quickley. He couldn't shoot the three. That was one of the knocks on him coming out of high school in Garland, Texas, going to Kentucky, and coming out of Kentucky. He shot 30% from three in his rookie campaign, and for that to go up so dramatically so far in his NBA career tells me that he's only going to continue to get better. Do I worry about the size of him being about 6'1"? For sure. But the first 3 years of his career have actually been better than the first 3 years of Jamal Murray's career, and Jamal Murray has turned into the perfect co-star for Nikola Jokic. So can Maxey be that perfect co-star for Joel Embiid? I'm holding out hope that he could, and here's the thing. He's only 22 years old, whereas Damian Lillard is a lot older with a lot of tread on the tires, and he has played a lot through his NBA career. He's really expensive. The mileage is starting to catch up a little bit, and while the production hasn't dipped for Damian Lillard, again, I think Maxey can tap into that really, really real potential. And his advanced shooting numbers this past year were elite among all NBA players. Catch and shoot three-pointers, 45.5%. On pull-up threes, almost 39%. Less than 10 feet from the rim. He finished on his field goals at a 55% clip. I think he's a pretty good finisher around the rim with that good touch on some of those floaters. And when you have that in your offensive bag, it does you wonders offensively. And how many times has Maxey in the playoffs throughout his first 3 years really bailed the Sixers out when they need to get a bucket? Because he can create all off the dribble. Now, can he improve his handle a little bit? Yes. Do I have some questions about him being the initiator and the point guard and his passing and distributing ability? For sure, but overall ranking here on his advanced shooting numbers in all three of these categories combining for a 7th. So I do want to ask you this question before we shift gears to Damian Lillard here. And this part of the conversation, would you trade Tyrese Maxey for Damian Lillard? Give me a T for trade or a K for keep. Damian Lillard, certainly an intriguing player. He has made it to the Western Conference Finals one time in his career. It came in 2019. The Trailblazers, after a great run that year, did get swept by the Golden State Warriors, who then lost to the Toronto Raptors. That was the year when Kevin Durant popped his Achilles and Klay Thompson tore his ACL. And yes, it's the same year of the heartbreaking quadruple bounce for Kawhi Leonard in Canada and Toronto in that Game 7 in the second round, when I love that lineup of Jimmy Butler, J.J. Redick, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons. But for Dame here, why it's intriguing, the idea of bringing him in, he can win you a playoff series. He's more consistent than James Harden. He's a better big game performer than James Harden. He has range out to 30, 35 feet. He can create off the dribble. And while he is in his early 30s here, he did average the most points of his career. And if he's doing that, and he's shooting between 38, 39%, 40% from three-point range, and you operate the two-man game, the dribble handoff between him and Joel Embiid, he provides floor spacing for Embiid. You might not be as good in 3 to 5 years from now as you would be with Tyrese Maxey, but does it help you win a championship over the next 2 years? While I might be in shambles about trading Maxey, watching Damian Lillard for 82 regular season games and then in the playoffs, that then becomes very, very enticing. Now, I do think that the play for Dame would be over the next 2 years, because after that, I'm not sure what type of player he's going to be. There isn't a great track record of smaller guards with this much mileage who wear down over time. And look at these numbers here, $58.5 million in 2025 and in 2026. And $63 million in 2026 and 2027. You can get away with these figures here. You are already going to pay James Harden $35.5 million. And I think Dame is a much, much better player as compared to James Harden. So really for Portland, if I'm the Trailblazers, I'm looking at this from this situation. I'm not trading you Dame unless I get back Tyrese Maxey. If I'm the Sixers, it's going to be really difficult to think about that. The idea of trading away this blossoming potential superstar at 22 years old because his potential really, really attractive. Now, we do have a couple of moves that we want to get to for some players that the Sixers have lost so far on day one of free agency. George Niang, he's out. Headed to the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was not going to get this deal from the Sixers of a 3-year contract worth $26 million. The last 2 years, he's made a bunch of threes, and he's connected on about 40% of those long balls. Sixers are going to miss him. He missed a couple of big shots for me in the playoffs, but a solid player, really important to the culture. The Sixers will miss him from a floor spacing standpoint. And then Shake Milton headed to the Minnesota Timberwolves. That is going to be a 2-year deal worth about $10 million, and he was not going to get that from the Philadelphia 76ers either. So Niang, Shake Milton, taking care of themselves, taking care of their families here, getting larger contracts than what the Sixers could have offered them. Our offseason coverage, it's only getting started. Our offseason coverage since that Game 7 listless loss to the Boston Celtics has been great up to this point. We're going to continue to keep it moving here. Make sure you subscribe to the show. It's 76ers now. I'm Chase Sr. Hit that sub button and keep it locked here for the best Sixers free agency coverage all throughout this offseason.